All right, what's up, everybody? Straight right boxing talk. Another big fight coming up. Kell Brook versus Errol Spence. I'm going to talk a little bit about some of their strengths and weaknesses, um, and how and why I think Kell Brook is going to win this fight. Um, Last three fights, Kell Brook TKO'd Frankie Gavin in six. Actually, that was a referee's tactical decision. May 30th, 2015. Then he had a TKO against Bizier in two, March 26th, 2016. And then obviously that TKO loss to Triple G September 10th. Errol Spence um, TKO'd Alejandro Barrera in five, November 28th, 2016. TKO'd Algeria in five on April 16th. And then knocked Bundu the fuck out in six on April 21st. Both guys are of a similar size. Kell Brook 5'9", 69-inch reach. Spence 5'9 and a half, 72-inch reach. Brook is 36-1, 25 KOs. Spence 21-0 with 18 KOs. So both guys can bang. Both guys can box. It's going to be an interesting matchup. It's going to be a hell of a fight. Kell's best win, probably Porter. Majority decision on August 16th, 2014. And Spence's best win is, it's Bundu or Algieri, whoever you like, really. I mean, it's a tough call. Let's get into the strengths now. Kell Brook first. Right off the bat, obviously, his timing is up there with the best fighters in the game. His timing is unbelievable. And he's got good hand speed too. Even at 160, obviously, he still held those advantages over Golovkin. Well, hand speed at least. He was able to get some shots in that we don't usually see guys get on Triple G. And he's got one of the best right hands in the game too. He doesn't telegraph it, and he's got a great 1-2 basically as well. His 1-2 is very fluid, and he's technically pretty sound overall. He's got a phenomenal jab, and he kind of exhibits the basic tenets of boxing: hit, don't get hit, and be in position to hit again. Kell Brook does that really well. He's seen plenty of southpaws fighting in Ingles' gym. And he fought recently against Frankie Gavin and Jojo Dan. British level fighters, but the southpaw look nonetheless. And Brook himself can turn southpaw as well. He can kind of make fights awkward that way. He's also got a phenomenal chin. He just proved that against Triple G. Granted, that again was at 160. I think he was dropped once in his career at 147, and that was a long time ago. I don't know if he's faced many massive punches. I can't really think of any offhand at 147, but obviously he took a fucking shellacking from Triple G, and he stayed up. So that tells you something. I wonder if it's going to hurt him trimming back down now to 147, because he fucking murders himself to do that. It'll be interesting. We'll see. Kell Brook also has a shit ton of heart. He proved that. I mean, the guy returned from getting stabbed, first of all. He jumped 2 divisions to fight the fucking, who a lot of people consider the boogeyman. And then he fought on from what I believe was the second round with a busted fucking eye socket. So don't anybody ever say Brook doesn't have balls or heart. And this fight, too, it was a mandatory. Spence comes in with a pretty serious reputation, justified or unjustified. And Brook could have very easily said, you know what, I'm gonna go to 154. 147 is too much of a toll on my body, blah, blah, blah. But he didn't do that either. He heard the pressure. He heard people saying they want the fight, and he said, you know what, fuck it. I hold the belt. If you want it, someone's gonna have to take it the fuck away from me. So you got to respect that in him too. And at 147, Brook still has some serious size and strength. A good example of that in practice is that Sean Porter couldn't really even overpower him. And Porter's not tall, but he's a strong pressure fighting, little dude. He's a tough motherfucker. So and Brook also overall has pretty good head movement, and his defense is solid. His reaction time is good. He kind of pulls back. We'll get into some of that in his weaknesses, but we'll kick over now to Errol Spence off the bat. His amateur pedigree, U.S. national champion, I think multiple times, Gold Glove winner, and he fought in the Olympics too. So the kid can obviously box. He's economical in his movement. I wouldn't say his feet are especially quick. He's kind of flat-footed most of the time. He almost fights in a mechanical way. It's hard to explain. He moves well. He's very deliberate. He has quick hands when he wants to. He's got good power. He's got phenomenal body punching. You saw that against Leonard Bundu. And he commits to his punches, all the time. He's not afraid to sit down and let it rip. For the way that he fights, he's got solid defensive movement. He does just enough to get out of the way of punches. It doesn't overexert himself. It's not flashy, but it's effective. He's very patient for a young fighter. He stays composed. He doesn't leave himself out there. He doesn't throw caution to the wind all the time. And then there's that story that he supposedly pushed Floyd Mayweather in training while Floyd was training for the Guerrero fight. Supposedly, depending on how you hear it told, he pushed Floyd in training, or he fucked him up in sparring. So one or the other, but either way, it's universally said that he had a very good showing against Floyd, for whatever that's worth. And yeah, so that's some of the strengths you get from him. On to the weaknesses. Kell Brook, his stance is that Ingalls type stance. A lot of his weight is on the front foot, and it's a double-edged sword. It allows him to make subtle movements to control distance, although sometimes what he'll do is he'll pull right back, and that can get him into a shit ton of danger. What it also does is his head isn't always centered between his knees, and he'll fall in after shots, which happened a lot in the Porter fight. Granted, it was a few years ago. He'll fall in, and then he'll have to roll or duck away from whatever's coming back, and it leaves him totally susceptible to an uppercut. He fights much better at range also, which can sort of be said of Spence as well. Brook can be a bit reliant on throwing a 1-2 all the time, and he tends to back himself against the ropes. That happened in the Golovkin fight, but granted, he was getting, by that time, I mean, that happens to everybody when they're fighting Triple G, so you can't really fault him for that. A big problem, though, is pulling straight back, although he controls range very well, so it hasn't hurt him yet, but it's the kind of thing that can really fucking cost him. Overall, no massively glaring weaknesses for him. Errol Spence, he, in my opinion, doesn't always jab as much as he should, or I guess he doesn't jab as, what's the word? He doesn't throw the jab as dominantly as he should. He doesn't use it to hurt somebody. It's more of a range finder, and he should use it more to set up his left hand, because when he lands with his left hand, typically people are getting hurt. He doesn't always close distance well for that very same reason, and he eats too many jabs also. That's partially due to the way his stance is. The way his left hand sits is kind of low, and the way he's turned, it's kind of hard to explain. And he doesn't always bring his hands back to his chin. I noticed in some of his fights when he gets a little excited, he'll come in and he'll throw a jab out, but his left hand will be down by his chest, and that's something he doesn't really want to do too often, especially against Kell Brook, who's straight right is fucking phenomenal. And let's see. What did I put here? Yeah, I mean his defense overall is okay. One problem is that he loads up a lot. He loads up in almost any fight that you see. Against Algieri, he must have thrown 4, 5, 6 power punches that Algieri just ducked under, and a couple times Spence was throwing himself off balance. He was winging him so hard. And another thing I've seen is usually when he gets inside, he throws punches with his elbows tucked in a way where he's almost just winging from his elbow in. It's hard to explain. It's a weird looking punch, and he does it with his hands low. And that's something that he doesn't want to get in the habit of doing too often. I like what Keith Thurman said about Errol Spence. He said he's a tree chopper. He chops away at you slowly until you fall down. I think that's a pretty solid description, but I also agree when Thurman said Kell's not going to easily get chopped down. We saw that in the Golovkin fight, assuming that he still holds up well at 147, and that's part of what makes this fight so interesting. Errol Spence throws punches from all angles, but like I said, he occasionally does tend to leave himself open. And I've noticed him throwing this whipping left hand to the body. He did it in the Van Heerden fight where he will be a decent ways on the outside, and he'll sort of just get low and lean in and throw this weird whipping left hand that leaves him wide the fuck open. And I just noticed that. And I thought that's something he doesn't want to be in the habit of doing too often. Now, here's how I think Kell Brook wins this fight. First of all, I think Spence is going to fight aggressively overseas. Obviously, most likely, I think he's going to be concerned about getting a decision, or very possibly at least. We'll see, I suppose. But with that being the case, I think Brook needs to establish his jab. That's one clear advantage he has over Errol. And he needs to let Spence come to him and counter. Just use his timing, throw that straight right early, and throw it often, and just avoid some of the pitfalls that he's had in the past, which haven't really hurt him, to be fair. But he can't fall in and make silly mistakes like that. I don't think either guy runs away with this fight in the end. I think Brook wins a close, tightly contested fight on points. I can see either guy getting dropped. I can see either guy winning, to be honest with you, but I think Kell pulls it out with the experience that he has. I'm curious to see how Errol Spence's chin holds up. I don't think he's really been tested against a guy like Kell Brook. Not that Brook is a huge puncher, but he's a better fighter than what Spence has faced by far. And we know Kell Brook has a damn good chin, or at least he did at 160. So it's going to come down to how Brook looks dropping back down to 147. How confidently he fights after that eye injury, assuming he's the same fighter. But that's what I think. It's a great fight, and looking forward to it. Let me know what you guys think, and thanks again for listening. Straight Right Boxing Talk. Hope you're doing well.